while the pandemic has been, ravaging America, and in particular in California, some of the case studies that you talked about were here in California. We're also dealing with wildfires yet again. And I know that this is something that you've recently written about in the Guardian. You have a book as well that you've written about this. So far, the 2020 versions of the wildfires, how do they compare in quantity and severity to some of the past seasons we've had in California?
Well, I think what's so remarkable about wildfires this year is both the rapid rate at which they have grown and the area that they have consumed. At one point, a couple of weeks ago, there was what fire scientists called a fire siege in the Bay Area, where there was a fire burning in every Bay Area county except for San Francisco itself, which is entirely urbanized. And the land area that was burned in just a week was equivalent to something like the entire area of land that had burned in 2019. And wow. I think what fire scientists are observing is that we are really in an era of what is called megafires. And I wrote about one of them in my book, Fire in Paradise, which is about the fire that destroyed an entire town, the town of Paradise, California, in 2018. The same year we saw a fire tornado. We've also seen fires in wine country that have killed dozens. And so the kinds of fires that we're seeing now, they are emerging. They are extremely large, despite our extremely, advanced technology for fire suppression. The thousands of men and women who are willing to suppress fires for whatever reason. Well, I'd say for whatever reason. We know the reasons. This fire suppression is stopping working. No longer works. And one of the main reasons that this is happening is because California is ever hotter. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, the hottest ever temperature on Earth, it looks likely, was recorded in Death Valley. At the time of these fires recently, the state was seeing extreme heat. The state's snowpack is ever smaller. And so climate change is not the only reason these fires are occurring, because California is used to fires. It evolves to have fires, but it's a very strong signal.
Exactly, and in your writing, I like that you point out, basically there's a lot of people sort of waiting for some indication that climate change has finally hit, as if there's gonna be one day that's suddenly gonna become much hotter. But you lay out some of the weather patterns and things like that have influenced this. Could you, I know it gets pretty technical pretty fast, but can you give us a little bit of an idea of how the warming and changed climate patterns that we're already seeing is helping to influence storms like, or firestorms like this?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it is to do with dryness. And for instance, in the 2010s, California saw some of its hottest years ever. It went into a prolonged drought, the effects of which continue to be felt. And even in the week of the fires, as I mentioned, there was extreme dryness. And what this does to the vegetation is it essentially draws the vegetation that's within the plant material into the air. And that plant becomes still a plant, but it's also become tinder, essentially. Mm. And then you combine this with what occurred in California several weeks ago, which was a massive lightning storm that occurred as a result of a decaying tropical storm in the Pacific, sending moisture over California, which sparked this lightning storm. You combine this lightning and this extremely dry vegetation, and you have a recipe for that fire siege.
Wow, and to have all of these things simultaneously striking the same state, even worse, of course. But we appreciate your reporting. Could you remind people of where they can find out more about your book, actually, if they want to learn more about this phenomenon?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's called Fire in Paradise, an American Tragedy, and you can go to fireinparadisebook.com to find the book.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your research and breaking down a couple of very important stories that people aren't taking perhaps seriously enough. We appreciate you joining us today on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.